1986.
Right now, at the beginning of this year, 1 out of every 5 homes had Nintendo. By the end of this year, 1 out of every 3 homes in America will have Nintendo.
Nintendo's NES has infiltrated homes around the globe. A new subspecies of human has been discovered, the gamer.
Oh, baby!
To sate their hunger, video game production ramps up exponentially, giving birth to iconic household names like Super Mario, Metroid, and The Legend of Zelda, along with Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, and Fire Emblem in Japan. It was a time of pushing past the arcade coin eaters like Pac-Man and Galaga to create games and tell stories limited only by human imagination. While these game developers had no idea just how big gaming would become in the ensuing decades, their passion for building new worlds spawned some of the most innovative IPs in history. However, some have slipped through the cracks. Today, we're going to look at a series from this era of gaming. One you've probably heard of, but very likely never played. This is Kid Icarus.
Kid Icarus was published by Nintendo in 1986 for the Nintendo Entertainment System. You may have seen it being played in the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Unlike many of Nintendo's standout games around this time, Kid Icarus isn't an original character like Mario or Donkey Kong. Instead, the series is based around Greek mythology. The main character is a young angel named Pit, whose wings don't actually work.
I never learned how to read!
Pit is based on the Greek figure Icarus, whose father built him a pair of wings to escape the island of Crete. Unfortunately, Icarus flew too close to the sun and the wax holding together his wings melted, causing him to plummet to his death. The original game was a simple platformer, sort of like Castlevania with a bow instead of a whip. As far as references to Greek mythology, the game features lots of enemies rooted in Hellenistic fables. You fight carnivorous flowers named Daphnes, named after the tree spirit of the same name, Ganymede, named after a boy who was carried to Mount Olympus by Zeus, sirens, taken from Homer's Odyssey, and the bosses are straight up named like Pandora and Medusa. But there are some enemies who have nothing to do with Greek mythology, like Eggplant Wizard. I mean, technically he's a Cyclops. Anyway, overall the game performed surprisingly well, outselling Kirby and the original Final Fantasy, but unfortunately it failed to find the longevity of those we just mentioned. A sequel did release in 1991 for the Game Boy, but it found nowhere near the same success as the original. This may have been due to the fact that it wasn't even released in Japan until 2012, despite being developed there. Weird. Over time, the SNES, Nintendo 64, and GameCube all came and went without a proper Kid Icarus sequel. While other retro characters like Mr. Game & Watch and the Ice Climbers were immortalized in Super Smash Bros. Melee, Pit was banished to the trophy room, where many thought he would be left for all time. What does that say? I'm sure that doesn't mean anything. Pit made his grand return in Super Smash Bros. Brawl on the Wii as one of the 4 characters revealed in the announcement trailer. Unlike the others, Pit hadn't been featured in the game since the early 90s and was in dire need of a redesign. Thankfully, the team at Sora Limited did not disappoint. The new and improved Pit was featured heavily in Brawl's adventure mode, the Subspace Emissary. With Pit's arrival into a new decade, many thought a new Kid Icarus game was surely right around the corner.
Sorry to keep you waiting.
Kid Icarus was finally back, and better than ever. Instead of a remaster of the originals or a platformer sequel, Kid Icarus Uprising turned out to be an on-rail shooter mashed together with a third-person action game. The game featured beautiful graphics, by 3DS standards. And holy sh**, a talking Nintendo protagonist?
Listen well, Medusa. Your days of darkness are numbered. Prepare to meet the light!
At the time, it seemed like Kid Icarus could become a new Nintendo staple, completely unique from any of their other series. Let's just hope the game's director knows what they're doing. Who's directing this one?
Hello, I'm Masahiro Sakurai, director of Kid Icarus Uprising.
Oh yeah, it's all coming together. Alright, moment of truth. Let's see what you got, Sakurai.
Medusa!
It's gigantic! What are you doing?
Forces of nature. You've become the enemy of all mankind. Sorry it had to come to this.
So, you're here to fight me, Pit?
Wait, I don't want it to end this way.
This is the only way things can end.
It's on! In the name of the goddess Palutena, defender of all that is good! Those who hide in the darkness will be made to face the light!
Here's to Kid Icarus Uprising, my new favorite game of all time.
Okay, when can I play the next one?
25 years until the next sequel?
Here's a quick overview of Kid Icarus Uprising. Medusa has returned with a couple more pixels, and it's time for Pit to save the world again. Each level is divided into 2 segments. A flying section where, thanks to the goddess Palutena's blessing, Pit can fly for 5 minutes, facing off against hordes of enemies in an on-rails shooter full of cinematic shots and story beats. Once Palutena's blessing runs out, Pit's wings become useless, and you have to walk to your destination. In this land phase of the game, you're handed full control to run around carefully crafted 3D maps armed with a weapon of your choosing. While the gameplay alone is totally unique, where the game really shines is in how it tells its story. The writing is this game's greatest strength, and Pit, despite being cringy at times, is an insanely lovable protagonist.
Pandora! Underling of Medusa floating before me! It's time for you to atone for your crimes! I am Pit, servant of the goddess of light, and you are history!
What was that all about?
And it's not just in cutscenes. The whole time you're playing, the story keeps rolling on the bottom screen, where any character can pop in at any time to chat.
If you'll excuse me, I must go gird my loins for your arrival.
TMI! Nobody wants to hear about your loins!
The tone is generally lighthearted, and you often forget that many of the characters talking are actually trying to kill you.
Look how far you've come, Pit. I'm proud of you.
Huh. You don't usually meet such nice bosses.
The story that unfolds as you try to kill Medusa is full of twists and turns, and it's an experience unlike any other, especially Chapter 18. If you played the game, you know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, go play the game right now, okay? The game also handles standard gameplay mechanics like character progression and difficulty settings in its own original way. In a typical RPG, you'll find yourself leveling your character stats, adding new abilities to your skill tree, upgrading your gear, or whatever the hell is happening in Xenoblade.
Oh yeah! Now it's riding time!
I got it! To you! There we go! Alright! To you! To me! Alright!
This is a good result!
Uprising opts to put all aspects of character progression into your weapon. As you play the campaign, you find weapons hidden throughout the levels, and you're also rewarded with weapons and hearts at the end of each chapter. Hearts can be used to buy more weapons, and weapons can be traded for hearts. There are 9 different weapon types in the game, and each one plays almost like an entirely different character. For example, the staff plays like a sniper, while a palm weapon makes you a mid-range machine gunner. Within the 9 categories, you will be able to find 12 different weapons, each featuring unique attacks and properties. Each weapon also has random substats, like HP boosts, move speed buffs, and status effects. The game features a fusion system akin to a Shin Megami Tensei game, where you can fuse 2 weapons together to create a new one that inherits some of the abilities of the parents. You can also equip bonus abilities on the power board, which tests your puzzle skills by seeing how many moves you can equip at one time.
Time for pain!
If I rotate it, and maybe if I put it, and no, what the? Good enough. Once you've fused your perfect weapon and maxed out your power board, you'll have a playstyle you can truly call your own. Personally, I love the way clubs attack, but hate how slow it makes you. Eventually, I managed to fuse a Magnus club with +3 running speed, and combined with the ability lightweight, now I'm moving like...
Disappear!
Uprising also takes a unique approach to difficulty, with its Fiend's Cauldron. Normally, a game would feature one set difficulty, or the option to pick between a couple different sets of difficulties.
For players who have played Resident Evil 4 in 2000, I have played Resident Evil 4, does that mean I have to pick this difficulty?
Uprising instead offers sort of a gambling system. At the start of each chapter, the player is presented with the Fiend's Cauldron, which they can pour their hearts into to up the intensity. The higher the intensity, the greater the enemy's strength and numbers, while also having improved AI. At the end of each chapter, players' payout will be determined by the intensity you completed it at, with higher intensity reaping higher rewards. Losing at any point in the level causes the cauldron to tip over, spilling out some of your hearts and lowering the difficulty for the remainder of the stage. A level 9 intensity can sometimes feel impossible, especially for a Nintendo game, but early on, you'll discover intensity gates. These are locked doors that can only be opened if you match the intensity number listed on the door or higher. Behind these gates, you'll usually find some of the best loot in the game. Once you're aware of these, you'll find yourself tempted to crank the difficulty to 9 every chapter, in case you finally run into that fabled level 9 intensity gate. This system is great for a lot of reasons, as it doesn't make you feel bad for opting for lower difficulties on some stages, while also mounting the pressure on when you gamble it all at level 9 for those sweet rewards. If you're curious to hear more about the developer's thoughts behind this mechanic, Sakurai himself actually recently published a video talking about it on his personal channel. Every inch of this game feels so packed with love from the developers. The menus are clearly inspired by Sakurai's previous work on Brawl, as well as the achievement system from Kirby Air Ride, and there are all sorts of bonus modes to mess around with, like a trophy collector and practice range. Plus, you can do this. This right here is the best part of the whole game. While I would love to hold you here for an hour telling you how amazing this game is and playing all my favorite voice lines, this video has to end sometime. This game really deserves even more love than it got, and I can't recommend it enough that you experience it for yourself. The 3DS eShop may be gone now, but I hear it's surprisingly easy to mod your 3. Sakurai is typically known for his work on multiplayer games, but Kid Icarus Uprising can easily be considered one of his finest works, and deserves to sit in the big leagues with Mario and Zelda.
Victory!
Now wait just a second. You didn't really think that's all we had to say about this game, did you? No. This is an esports channel. And guess what? It's esporting time. Nearing the game's release, Sakurai hosted a developer presentation going over the details of the game, but instead of talking about the main story mode, he instead opted to jump into a 4-minute match analysis of a game no one had yet to play. Truly, a marketing genius. Jokes aside, this overview gives you a really good idea of how the game's multiplayer works, and shows how serious Sakurai was about its development. To say the least, it's not just a bonus feature tacked on at the end of the game. The Together mode features 12 unique maps, offering tons of variety in gameplay. The main mode is called Light vs. Dark, an original take on a standard team deathmatch mode. 2 teams of 3 are pitted against each other with their shared health bars displayed at the bottom. Every time a player dies, it chunks away at the team's HP. Once the bar is emptied, the next player to die will become the Team Angel, respawning as either Pit or Dark Pit. This final Angel is much stronger than the rest of the players, but as soon as they are killed, the match ends. The best part about the multiplayer is creating custom loadouts, meaning that all those amazing weapons you forged and power boards you puzzled your way through during the single-player campaign can be used here too, making every player totally unique. While we touched on how the weapon system works in a previous section, we didn't actually take a close look at how combat functions. So, here it is. You're able to walk in any direction with the control stick and flick it in a direction to start sprinting. To aim, use the 3DS stylus on the lower screen, and the left trigger to attack. Every weapon is different, and not all follow the same rules. Generally, holding L will fire rapid projectiles, and if you get close to an enemy, it'll switch to a melee swing. Pressing L while sprinting will cause you to dash in that direction while firing a multi-shot. When you get close enough to an enemy, flicking left or right on the control stick will cause you to do a quick strafe, allowing you to instantly dodge attacks and reposition to the other side of your enemy. If you haven't thrown out an attack in a while, your reticle will change shape to let you know that you've got a charge attack ready, which is typically a stronger version of your basic attack with higher damage or a longer range. When you have a charge attack ready, pressing L while simultaneously flicking the control stick will make you do a dash attack in that direction, with some weapons having special attacks in specific directions, such as a special backdash attack, which is usually a massive slow-moving projectile. Your power board's abilities can be accessed at the bottom of the second screen by either tapping or using the D-pad. These are limited use moves that range from a simple jump to a mega laser to comboing these moves together into something disgusting, such as an aimbot that lets you shoot through walls at the same time. Needless to say, the game has depth you probably weren't expecting from a 3DS reboot of a game from 1986. So let's finally talk about the title of this video, what went wrong with the game. While the game did an excellent job of using the design of the 3DS, with the lower screen being used for character conversations and the 3D feature being used to its full effect, the game ultimately suffered the most from being locked in this tiny handheld prison. The most common criticism levied against the game is its controls. The game is essentially a twin-stick shooter without a second stick. Using the stylus to aim requires you to hold the 3DS really awkwardly with your left hand and pushing with your right palm while holding the stylus. So, while our editor had no issue with the control scheme, one can see why it would be frustrating to use. Nintendo themselves were aware of the issue, and the game was actually sold with a stand that would hold your 3DS in a more ergonomic position. Another major issue was the screen size. While the 3DS comes in all shapes and sizes, even the largest models are too small for this game. The twists and turns of the stages, too many enemies, way too many particle effects, it's often hard to clearly see what's happening. This issue obviously carries over to multiplayer. Multiplayer can quickly become a cluster of flashing lights and particles during teamfights, and it becomes especially confusing if you're playing as a sniper. So even though the game had some real competitive potential, it's hard to justify investing in a high-speed action game where the hardware is so poorly optimized. While Nintendo did actually set up a LAN tournament for the game at launch, this was where their support of a competitive scene ended. Fun fact, professional Smash player DeBuzz actually won this event. Another issue is how poorly the 3DS was received at launch. Priced at $249.99 USD, it was Nintendo's most expensive handheld console to date and sold well below their expectations. Within a year, the price dropped to $169.99. On top of this, the console release was some of the worst launch games we've ever seen. The 3DS recovered in its second year, but despite Kid Icarus releasing around the turning point and Nintendo's oddly large marketing push for the game, seriously, there were like 10 trailers and an anime short, the game sales were average. It can be hard to compete for players' attention when Mario and Zelda games are right there. Despite flying under the radar, ask anyone who has played it and they'll likely sing its praises. Departing from Nintendo's standard gameplay and storytelling, this cult classic is considered by many to be one of their best games to date. With the success of the Nintendo Switch, now would be a better time than ever to introduce a new generation of gamers to the wacky world of Kid Icarus. Heck, even the creator of the game himself agrees.
シンパルってな、強気ゲームとしてやりたいですよね。どこかがペロッと移植してくれないかな。
Please, let this be teasing something. This video is made possible thanks to our wonderful patrons. Massive thank you to everyone on this list, and shout out to B, Cloud Shampoo, Spartacus, and Yashichi for being Platinum supporters, and an extra special shout out to Steph and Jack for being our Diamond supporters. We hope you're enjoying the content. If you want to talk to us, check out our Discord. If you want to support our channel and get info on unreleased videos, check out our Patreon. If you want to help us out in a different way, leaving a like, subscribing, and hitting the bell to stay up to date is also appreciated. My name is Jonah. Thanks for watching.